Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to this webinar. Thank you for taking out time to join us. This is Satya, part of the organizing team, and I'll be facilitating this webinar. Today we're going to talk about a few challenges specific to retail operations and compliance. But before that, let me quickly explain the format of the webinar and introduce you all to the speaker. The webinar will be for an hour, which includes time for a quick demo and a question and answer session in the end. You can send me your questions through chat and we will address them one by one at the end. The speaker for today is Praveen Kanyadi. He is a co-founder and vice president products at Groupe.io. He is a product leader with deep experience in building enterprise-ready, consumer-based and web-scale products. So without much ado, let's hear from him. Over to you, Praveen.
Thank you, Satya. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon which part of the geography you've joined us. First of all, I would like to thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick primer on Groupe.io itself. The Groupe.io is essentially a mobile-based communication and productivity platform. We designed this platform specifically for industries such as retail, hospitality, aviation, where there's a large majority of workforce that is deskless. So when I say deskless, essentially these are, the nature of work is essentially, where these workers or these employees are not sitting behind the desk. So although Groupe.io serves a very broad variety of use cases, today we are specifically going to talk about compliance as a use case. So, we've had the opportunity to work with, large retailers across different geographies. And what we've done is we've taken the learnings specifically around compliance from these deployments. And what we want to do is share those learnings, the challenges that we faced, and how we've taken our platform, Groupe.io, to address those challenges. And on basis of that, we're going to make certain recommendation. And towards the end, we will also walk you through a short demo of Groupe.io, so you get a feel for how the product solves these challenges. And as Satya mentioned, towards the end, we'll also have a Q&A session where if you have questions, we'll discuss that too. So with that, let's just get started. So when we talk about compliance, essentially compliance is ensuring that everything works as per the defined guidelines, which could be looking at whether the shelves have been well stocked, whether the cleaning has been done, whether if there is a change in policies, do the employees know about it, have the new promotion posters been put in place. Essentially, there's a lot of moving parts, and really compliance is just making sure that everything is working as you've defined it. When we talk, going back to those deployments that I was talking about, when we spoke to them, the one thing that, the first starting point for us was that each of these retail stores had a well-defined process for every aspect of their operations. And, the reason why we're all here is because we all understand that non-compliance can be very, very costly. It can lead to business disruptions, operational inconsistencies, and even fines and penalties. So to avoid that, all of these organizations have laid out well-defined processes. And the goals of these well-defined processes is primarily so that they can stay compliant, they can have consistent outcomes, and it kind of creates a standard operating model for everyone. But despite that, despite having these processes, they've had challenges. So when we started to work with them, we realized that they had several challenges while enforcing compliance. Now, some of these challenges were process related. So although they had well laid out processes, they had very limited visibility in terms of how these processes are running. They also had a challenge where, let's say there is a non-compliance, right? They were not able to get that feedback in real time. And by the time they acted on it, it was too late. And most of these processes did not have any reporting and analytics, so there was no feedback coming in terms of the efficiency of these processes. There was also people and tools related challenges. Most of these processes, you were obviously manual, a lot of paper driven processes. So it required a lot of manual effort, a lot of inertia. Um, there's also the aspect of right tools. As I mentioned, the nature of these, their function of job was that they were not in behind the behind computers. So traditional applications which are desktop based was completely out of bounds. So the lack of right tools, a lot of paper driven processes, and there was also poor awareness of the impact of non-compliance. And as is this industry has retail, hospitality has a lot of churn, the, the new people coming in, so getting people onboarded, all of that was also a huge challenge. But when we started to look at these problems, the compliance challenges, and we started to look down deeper, what we realized that the challenges essentially boil down to these three things. The first underlying problem was the fact that most of these processes were paper driven process, which is why it was error prone. It was hard to do any kind of reporting on top of that. There's no real time framework, feedback mechanism, all of that. The second aspect was that at the end of the day, processes involve people. People are core to any process. And the nature of this industry, again, deskless, going back to the fact that people on the shop floor, not in front of a computer, communication and collaboration was really hard. And processes has so many moving parts. Without effective communication, it's very, very hard to have people on the same page. And the third aspect was the productivity tool. Again, the nature deskless worker require very, very different type of tool sets, something that's works in their nature of work, which is the deskless kind of function. So these were essentially the three core problems that we identified was primarily the challenge in driving or ensuring compliance. So what we recommend, based on our experience working with these retail customers and helping them with compliance, is number one, automate your paper driven processes. Number two, connect your workforce. Create an inclusive communication channel where everybody is connected in real time. And number three, mobile enable key functions. And the reason why we bring this up is because with deskless workers, mobile is the only thing that's ubiquitous, is the only channel through which you can reach these deskless workers in real time. So if you want to connect people on the shop floor, it has to be mobile. So just going, getting deeper into that, going back to the first point, which is automating your processes. Essentially what we're talking about is take your existing processes, which could be your store opening checklist, store closing checklist, or anything that currently people have to fill out using paper, into digital checklist and data collection processes. The other aspect that is very, very critical is that in a setup like this, there are a lot of ad hoc things that come up, right? To ensure that you're on top of all of these ad hoc tasks, there should be a way. You should focus and invest in a task management solution that lets you create these tasks ad hoc, allow and assign it to people on the floor and stay on top of that. The other aspect is reporting and analytics. This is critical. You've defined the process, but you need to have feedback in terms of how the process is working, if people are adhering to the processes, and what are the loopholes, where are the inefficiencies. So essentially focus, invest in a platform that provides you reporting and analytics. And finally, real-time notification alerts. Once you have everything on a digital platform, what's very, very critical is to get real-time notification alerts. So you can take remedial actions in real time. Now, all of this will result into elimination of manual error, real-time visibility, and all of that stuff. Let's focus on the second one, connecting your workforce. Now, it's important to have a channel that connects your desk-based, like your corporate office, with people on the, on the shop floor. These are your, sales associates, people who are actually manning the storefront. For that, you need an inclusive communication channel. Uh, Most of times, these people don't have a corporate email address, so you need a solution that works without a corporate email solution. Um, it connects them, it has to be secured, and there is a lot of collaboration that goes on a day-to-day basis. Uh, Currently, people do that using public messaging apps or those kind of things. To ensure the organizational security, data security, you should make sure that the solution that you take has all of these collaboration features built in as well. The second thing that we observed was that a lot of time was getting wasted in terms of or there was inefficient in terms of approvals and those kind of things. So you should look for a solution that also supports workflow. And finally, the most important thing is that the solution has to be simple and intuitive, because you have to make sure that everybody across the board is able to quickly understand and get onboarded to the solution. The third aspect is, is the mobile enablement of key functions. And the reason why I bring this up is because, as I mentioned, that if you're looking at applications, if there is technology, and technology can help um, these, your staff, your frontline staff get more productive. You can build applications that are tailored based on their day-to-day job. Just to give an example, we had this use case where at the retail store, um, every time there was a missed sale, they would actually go and write it in a paper. Uh, Now it was, the whole idea was that in this paper-driven process, right? They would go and enter that, make that entry, and towards the end of the week or end of the month, they would actually look at all the missed sale, SKUs, and then there'd be a downstream process to replenish it, do all of that stuff. But the problem was that everybody had to wait for a week or a month to collect all the data and do that. Instead, if you provide them with uh, a simple application where they can actually make that entry, then you can it can kick in those downstream replenishment process instantly. Now, to do that, you have to make sure that it's available on mobile. If it's a desktop app, where there's one common computer in the storefront, it's not going to be very effective. The other aspect is, with the technologies such as NLP, AI, you've seen chatbots come over everywhere. These are sort of a virtual assistant. They can help. So just to give another example, let's say a customer walks in and is looking for a particular item that's not available at that specific store. Now, currently, the associate can, actually go look up on a computer, check if any other stores are carrying that inventory. Um, he has to go log into the computer. Typically, it takes about 15-20 minutes or 10-15 minutes maybe to pull that information. But imagine if there was a virtual assistant that you just go put in the SKU and say, I need you to help track it. It can automatically find your current location, and based on that, look at, let's say, a 20-mile radius. It can say these are the 5 stores, and this is that one store that's carrying it. Would you like me to order that for your customer? And one tap, and it can actually take care of that. So I'm just throwing up some examples, the examples of what we've implemented, but there could be other variety of different use cases that you might want to implement uh, with the help of as a virtual assistant. Now, the whole idea, just to summarize here, what we've talked about is focus. The idea here is that essentially If you focus on automating your process, it's going to be less error prone. So uh, you're going to be, so the chances of being compliant are, significantly increase the compliance. The other aspect is connecting your workforce helps you educate, train, get people on board, take real-time decisions, and that's very, very critical aspect of running your operation smoothly. And the third aspect is increase productivity by investing in mobile-enabled, productivity apps. So with that, I want to, explain, how Groupe.io addresses these requirements. So essentially, Groupe.io, as I mentioned, is it's a mobile-based communication and productivity solution. There are three core tenets of the platform. The first one is communication. So everything from a top-down communication, being able to broadcast it to all the employees, or enabling employees to interact with each other, peer-to-peer interaction, um, to a group kind of a conversation. All different forms of communication, uh, is supported. There are also aspects of engagement. The other aspect of the people aspect is keeping them motivated, onboarding them, training them. So all of those use cases around training, onboarding, um, motivating them. That's the second aspect of it, the engagement. And the third one is the productivity aspect. Now, this is where the mobility sort of use cases come into play. We have a specialized technology called micro applications. The micro applications enables us to provide highly tailored mobile application, mobile functionality for um, employees. So these are the three core, tenets of the platform. And I think this is a perfect segue for us to actually go and look into a demo, so you get a sense for it. But before we do that, I just want to just quickly touch upon one case study with a major retail chain that we worked in Middle East. So this particular retail chain in Middle East, it was a multi-store. They had several stores spread across multiple cities, and they had a very well-defined process for every aspect of the operations. So, uh, but uh, the problem was that all of these processes were paper-driven. And just to give an example, if there was the store opening and the store closing, all of these checklists, people would enter all of this data manually, and all this information would get collated on a periodic basis, and based on that they would review the data. Now the biggest challenge was that in case there was a non-compliance, they were not able to take action. It was very, very painful for people to, for the people on the floor to actually, go fill it out every day. um, the review, audit, all of those things was hard. They were also not able to, rate the performances of the store based on these SLAs. So when they came to us, they were like, we're having challenges with compliance. We don't know, we know that, these processes are not being clearly adhered to, but it's very, very hard for us to actually go deep dive and figure out exactly where are those process inefficiencies. The other thing is that we're not able to either reward or sort of uh, look into which are the stores that are not fully compliant to our processes. So essentially, that's where they wanted to digitize the whole process. The other aspect that they found was that even in terms of people communication, um, when let's say there is a new promotion that's coming up, the ability to communicate back to every individual people on the store, they realize that although the store managers and specific folks within the store had that information, the information dissemination down to the last person was a challenge. Um and even in terms of any kind of people communication, getting issues resolved. Sending out this information through email or all of that meant that it took a while for these issues to be resolved. There was another use case. Let's say there was a particular date collection of cash for that specific day. They would go and deposit that in the bank, and then they would take a scan of the photo. They would send it over email. Now let's say there was a challenge, so all the stores used to send it in one single place, and they would check it over the email, and if there was any discrepancy, they would again create a new email and send that as a task. So managing a task, the thread would be lost, the context was lost. It was very hard to pull data into one place. And so the whole idea, what they essentially wanted to do was find a way to digitize the whole thing so they have real-time visibility into it, find a way to communicate and collaborate faster. And the third thing that they wanted was in-depth analytics in terms of their process operations. So now what I'm going to do is just take you through a product demo, show you some aspects of how you can actually take your paper-based processes, convert that into checklist. I'll show an example of how you can create tasks in an ad hoc fashion, and stay on top of that. We'll also see some communication aspects. So the first thing I want to show you is how to create a process, how to create a checklist. So let's take an example of a checklist like a store opening checklist. And imagine you currently have a paper-driven process. Now, so there are two types of processes here. One is checklist, which is basically, where a user just says, whether it confirms to it or not. And a data collection is when you actually want to collect some information from every store. So you can pick, what type of process you want to create. Let's say it's let's say it's a checklist process, and I'm calling it as a product inspection checklist. It could have been a daily store checklist, opening checklist, closing checklist. Now, just to make it easy, I've got some questions that I'm going to use. Now you can specify the frequency. You can say, whether the employees need to fill this out daily, whether they need to fill it out weekly, monthly, what is the deadline. So I can say they need to fill it out by 8 p.m. every day. And you can also specify whether it's a fixed deadline. So with a fixed deadline, you cannot come back and fill it out the next day. So let's just go and create the questions here. Oops. Yeah. Now, as you can see, as you fill it out, this is a real-time, sort of preview of how it is going to show up for the end users. So I can, the other thing you would notify, you'll notice is that there is a way to say notify me. Now, let's say you have these questions: are all products on display up to date and damage free? If somebody on the floor chooses the option no, which is the negative option, because you've opted to get notifications, you'll be notified in real time that the products at that particular store is not up to date, and you can take whatever remedial action that you might want to. So let's let's fill out the rest of the questions. As you can see, it's as simple as this. I click on add questions, and I can that's it. So I add another question. So just for now, just to keep it simple, I'm just we've got these 3 questions. It could have been 30 questions, 40 questions, and then so what I've done is I've taken a paper-based checklist. I've added it here. Next, what you want to do is you want to assign it. So you can assign it to a role. So let's say you can assign it to who is supposed to fill out this checklist. Is it the cashier? Is the customer service? Is the store manager, divisional manager, sales associate? any roles that you might have, you can upload those roles here. You can also associate them based on a store. So you can say the store in San Jose, Cupertino, Mountain View, or you could also assign it directly. So in this case, I'm just going to assign it to myself. You can select multiple users. You can say skip these users. You can do a variety of different things, and that's it. That's all that I had to do to set up this process. Now I'm going to go back and show you the end user experience from the mobile app. So what I've done now is I've taken my mobile app and I have projected my mobile app on the screen. So I'm going to click on Groupe.io, and before I get to the rest of the app and explain it to you, I'm going to jump straight into the checklist app. So when I tap on this checklist app, right, now this is me, Praveen Kanyadi. I am, let's say I'm the store manager and I'm supposed to fill out a bunch of checklists. So the moment I open the app, I can actually see the checklist that I've created over there. So there are a bunch of checklists that are there. So I'm going to show you, the actual end user experience. So let's say the store parking lot checklist. Okay, it says, are appropriate signs posted? I say yes. Next. Are there, parking areas free from trip hazards? I say next. Is there adequate light? Now I can type a comment here. Uh, some areas have, uh, spotty lighting. Let's say I can, just add a comment here. I can even upload a image, um, any type of document actually. As a supporting document. It could have been an image, it could have been a PDF, anything. And then that's it. Submit it. So I'm done. They could also be, so this is how you actually go ahead and create a checklist. You could also, if I go back here, while creating it, it need not always just be a checklist. You can also create a data collection thing. So let's say I create a defective list process, and I say it's again something that's daily. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is that, it doesn't always have to be a yes, no kind of thing. You could actually do something like this where you can say, do you have any defective list to report? So instead of a, choice of yes and no, see, in this case, it's a yes and no choice. It could actually be a short answer. If you see here, it's a different type of input. It could have been a numeric value. So in this case, you can only enter a numeric value. You cannot enter, like a text or a string or those kind of things. You can even have like a date time field. If you enter a date time field, they'll have to enter a specific date. Only that would be allowed. So and you could also do sub inputs. So for example, in this case, you can add a sub question. So if they say, do you have any defective list to report? If they say yes, then you can ask them some other question. If they say no, then there is no further question. So you can also do nesting of questions, all of that. But I think the bottom line, what I've tried to show you here is that, just take any of your processes, convert that into a digital checklist in minutes, assign it to roles, and that's it. Now, once you've done that, because it's all digital, you can get real-time reports. You can get real-time tracking, how many people have done that, how many people have yet to comply. And it also sends you text notifications. I think I should have, so it also, if you see here, it says, Praveen, one of your tasks is due today. It's sending me link. It's sending me text notifications. It's also sending me push notification. The moment I tapped on it, it launched my checklist app where I can go and fill out these checklists. So that's on the checklist side of things. Now, imagine as a, now as a manager, I want to go ahead and, create a task. So now I'll change the persona here. The use case is that there are new promotional posters that have come in, and I want to make sure that all the stores are making sure that the promotional posters have been set up. Now this is not essentially a process or a data collection or a checklist. This is something ad hoc, one-off scenario. So what I'm going to do is, from my mobile app itself, right, I can go and create. Let's say I want to create the Memorial Day thing coming up, and so there's a sale for that. So I am going to upload. Let's say I'm going to say Memorial Day. Okay, so it's a Memorial Day signage, and then I can, I'm just the description could be, display the signage for the Memorial Day sale as per the attached document. And you can specify due date here. So I'm going to tap on the calendar, and I can say that 24th is the last day to do this. You can even specify a time. So I can say it is 2, I can say it's maybe 3:30 p.m. is the, and I can also make it, I can also say whether it's a repeating task or it's a one-off thing. I can set a priority for it. And while assigning it, again, I can assign it to individuals, or, I can assign it to a group. So in this case, let's say, just to keep it simple here, I'm going to assign it to myself. And on top of that, I can also create a checklist here. Now, the checklist here is to make sure that people have followed those tasks while doing it. So let me, I've got, um, so, okay. So the checklist could be, here is that, that at the aisle, front lobby, front lobby, trial rooms. Now these are where you want to put in the posters, let's say trial rooms. So I'm just saying trial rooms, right? And that's it. Now I can attach, if I want, I can attach a Word doc or whatever, but I can just say create, and the task is created. So what I've done now, as you can see in the updates, I have created a Memorial Day signage, assigned it to Praveen Kanyadi. Now, in this case, I'm playing both the manager and employee, but let's say if I was just the employee, Praveen, then when I tap here, I see that there is a Memorial Day signage, task that has been assigned to me. I can accept it, and as you can see here, that the Memorial Day signage, I've accepted it. Now, as somebody on the floor, I can click on this. After I've arranged all of that, I'll go and say that I put the posters at the aisle, at the front lobby, trial rooms, and I can mark it as complete. So now if I go back as a manager, when I go here, right, I can see that the Memorial Day signage has been complete. As a manager, what I could do is I can look at the overall task. In this case, I can say there are 3 completed tasks. There are no pending tasks, but if there were any pending tasks, you could see that out of the 10 tasks that you've assigned, 3 are complete, 2 are accepted, 1 is due today. So essentially, as you can see, you can assign these tasks on the fly, and people on the floor can get notifications on the phone, and from their phone, they can actually look at the task, update the status. So everything happens in real time. Now, let's look at the app now, right? So we've, I've shown you the productivity aspect of it. Now, what I'm going to do is, if you observe in the bottom, there are 4 tabs. Now I'm clicking on the activity tab. The activity tab is essentially like your Facebook feed, except it tells you everything that's happening within the store. So it has, as you can see, there is a survey, there is, there is announcement that's happening. So, on the store, there could be an announcement that, we've got a new promotion that's coming up, or it could be announcement about new policy changes from HR, could be anything. So, we can also have systems sending out these feed. So for example, you can actually go and approve, if you put in your request for travel, if that is reimbursed, it comes in. This is an example of an HR policy. When I tap on that, you can see that the new policy Word document, right? I can just read it right from here. Now, a very important aspect of this is that when you click here 42 views, you can see that you can see how many people have actually read it. You can even force people to read it. It's called the digital read receipt. That ways you can stay compliant. So if you want to make sure that you come up with new policy, uh, you can send it and force a digital receipt. So that ways you can ensure that everybody has gone through it and they're aware of the new policies. There's also the group functionality where you can actually create specific interest groups. In this case, there's a workplace safety group. Now let's post. We talked about one of the challenges, which is lack of awareness in terms of compliance, right? Lack of awareness in terms of how do you train, educate people. Uh, Formal trainings don't work because getting people to actually go into a formal training room, getting them to go through a class, it's wishful but doesn't really happen. The most practical alternative is to actually teach them on the fly. Have it, social media is something that we're all used to. So if you look at this experience, for example, so let's say I wanted to post, um, you know uh, there's a workplace, you've created a website where, or you created a microsite where there's all that information about training. I'm going to show you how you can actually share that with employees in real time. So I go to workplace safety and then I say create post, and so there's a you've organized the safety training. Now what we're going to do is we are going to now please observe that I'm adding a link here. So you can essentially add any link, and instead of calling it read more, you could have said that even said more details. So basically you can just completely format it the way you want. I'm just going to add an image to it too. All right. So now what I can do is I can send it to everyone. I can even add an attachment. I can add a video, do all those kind of things. Or I can send it to a specific group. So what I want to do is I want to send it to people in this particular group called workplace safety. And I'm going to say create. Now let's go back to the app, and as you can see, I've got a notification which says workplace safety. Please join us for safety training. So everybody on the floor gets an instant notification when they tap on that. They see that there's a workplace, safety training that's going to happen. When they click on more details, right, it takes them to this link that I've shared, which is on the workplace safety training. Now, this is, as you can see, in real time, I was able to create and send out information to all the employees. Likewise, let's say you have you have a survey. You've been educating people, you've been conducting trainings. Now, how do you get people to actually? How do you assess uh, how this training has helped them understand or sensitize them towards compliance? So maybe you can just do a quick survey. So let's say I just click on survey here, and let's say you have a survey that you've created on SurveyMonkey. So we're just going to take that. Let's see, just want to make sure that's, sorry, looks like some problem with the link. Okay, it worked finally. It's a problem with so, all I did was I went to SurveyMonkey, took a survey, I created a survey, and I'm just saying that we want to test, you know, your, or, and I've just posted the survey. Now let's go back and see, there's a notification and it says we want to test your knowledge and compliance. When you tap on that, it says take survey. I tap as a user, as one of the employees. Oops, I've already taken the survey. Uh, okay, I didn't realize that. But I could have just, oh, sorry, it looks like, I have already participated in the survey, so I can't make any, I can't show that to you, but that's, just getting people to participate. The survey would have worked exactly like this. I can go back to a different survey and show it to you. So now this is how the survey would have worked if I'd done it, so instantly from here. So just essentially what you've seen here is that, and there is also one very quick thing that I want to show is that, oops, sorry, it looks like I was clicking on the screen without even, showing the phone. So the other quick thing that I just want to show is we also have messaging feature. So let's say you're on the shop floor and people need to communicate with each other. They can tap on the directory, and they can find anybody and start. They can even look up for folks. I can tap on Kemp and say, "Hey Kemp," and just start chatting with him. I can share photos, videos, those kind of communication features. So overall, just to summarize, essentially what I've shown you here is that uh, our platform provides you a way to automate and digitize this process, all your existing processes. Uh, the apps screen that you saw here, these are all specific micro applications. So you saw the checklist app, you saw the task manager app, but we could build different types of apps for you, custom apps. So it brings apps. You've seen the communication aspect of it. So we bring communication, apps, collaboration, all of this together. And once you've done that, you can also get very, very rich analytics. I'm just not going to get into the depth of it, but everything from, how are people engaging on it, what is the contribution, uh, reports on the coverage of checklists, compliance, all of that, right? Uh, behavioral metrics, which channels are the, at what time of the day are they filling out the checklist, all of that stuff. And also very, very customized, reporting that we could do. So that pretty much, brings me to the end of, what I wanted to show in terms of a product demo. Uh, and we can now, any questions that you might have that we can discuss.
Thank you very much, Praveen. We do have a few questions. Just for the benefit of those who missed the intro, I'm Satya, part of the organizing team, and you can send your questions to me through chat. I will read out to them. I will read out them to Praveen, and we will answer them here. So this is the first question, Praveen. Does the group platform have any employee engagement tools?
It does. So we actually support uh, uh, a lot of pre-built employee engagement tools, such as survey, polls. We have a very cool feature called Idea Box, which lets you crowdsource ideas, funnel ideas from people, throw in some challenges, get them to, share ideas around that. We do uh, employee recognition as well. So you can create customized employee recognition cards. There are several, gamification and several other features that comes out of the box.
Okay, thanks, Praveen. Um, how the next question? How can I conduct compliance trainings, ensure participation, and measure awareness? So this
Right,
is directly related to compliance that we were talking about.
right. And it ties back to some of the things that I showed in the demo. So there are several different ways, you could do that. There is obviously, we have an integration with an LMS platform called Moodle, where you can create formal training, and then have people in that group go and take those modules. But you could also do something that is lightweight, get very very effective, what I just showed you, which is you can create these groups and make sure that you are posting content, whether it is video, all of that within this group. A mobile based experience makes it possible for your staff to actually consume this content on the fly, which we've seen has been very, very effective. And then there are secondary feedback mechanisms, such as, I showed the survey, um, which I'd already participated, but it was a compliance survey. What I was trying to show you is that you could have asked specific compliance related questions to test how individual employees are doing against that compliance score. There are also features that such as read receipts, where you can actually force you can force acknowledgement from employees. So essentially they're required to go through those videos, attachments and all of that, um, as part of the compliance. So that ways, you made sure that they've actually had all that information, they've gone through all the information. um, and based on our current deployments, what we've seen is that that has been very, very effective um, in educating and training employees on compliance.
Okay. The next question, Praveen. How granular can the performance tracking be?
Right, that's a good question. So the just purely from a technology standpoint, what we do is we actually record every information. It's a digital platform, and our data collection mechanism works in such a way that we have all that data um, recorded and stored. Now, it's almost a big data framework that we have behind the scenes. Now, you can slice and dice the data in any which ways that you want. Uh, we do offer some, we do offer our own metrics based on the current deployments. But if there are customized requirements around metrics, it's very easy to do that, because it's just about slicing and dicing the data and presenting it in a certain format. So it can go extremely granular. It could be, and it can be pivoted across multiple dimensions too.
Thanks, Praveen. The next question is on security. This is the last question we have. Does the platform store internal data? Can you elaborate on data security?
Right. So Groupe.io, we are an ISO 2700 certified company. Um, we have all the data that the enterprise data is it's a multi-tenant system. and all the data is encrypted on the wire and at rest. We use 256-bit encryption, so we've and every standard out there and the best practices in terms of data storage and connectivity, we follow those. Uh, we actually have a very detailed, sort of documentation in terms of all the data and security practices that we follow. Uh, so in terms in on top of that, we also support multi-factor authentication and biometric security. So we've sort of thought through the entire data security inside out. And I'll be happy to actually provide anybody if requiring that information, will be happy to provide that.
Thank you, Praveen. So we've now come to the end of the webinar. We did start with the compliance challenges, and we spoke about how to fix it using automation. We did a demo, and we've done the question and answers. Uh, we will also be sending the webinar recording to all of them who have registered and who have attended, of course. So thank you everyone once again for taking out time and joining us in the webinar. Thank you, Praveen, for the presentation.
Thank you, Satya, for all the coordination and everybody who's taken the time to join us today. Thank you, deeply appreciated.